Okay, welcome back everybody. I'm going to start a new series. This is a Crosley 516. There are two variations of this. This is probably the most common one. And if you can see, someone has, I guess Mama somewhere down the line said, I don't like that old radio, and so somebody slapped some hunter green paint on it. So we'll decide what we're going to do with this, whether we're going to strip this off and go back to the bare wood. The veneer should be decent shape underneath this, or if we're going to just try to work with that. In the comments, let me know what you think. I've got an idea what I think I want to do to it, but we'll see what you guys come up with. This originally came out around between 1935, 1937, from the Crosley Radio Corporation out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and it sold for $19.99, and I think that was throughout the whole 3 years or 2 years that it was available. It was about the same price. It has 5 tubes. There's 2 6D6s, and there's a 76 tube. There's a 6B5 audio tube, and an 80 rectifier. Now this particular one, and we'll when we get into it, we'll see. I haven't had it apart other than looking at the tubes, so you're going to see this stuff about the same time I see it. So but right now they've got somebody put a 40 tube output tube in it, which I've been reading is similar to the 6B5. I think the 6B5 might be a little bit more expensive, harder to find. I've got one coming, so I'm going to go back with the original output tube. There has to be a modification to use the 42, so we're going to have to reverse what they had. Now there's 2, as you can see. I'm going to have to come up with a knob. Those are nice knobs, but that one doesn't match there. It's just an old generic equipment knob. There's 2 bands. It's a super heterodyne. There's one AF stage, which we talked about, the 6B5, and the IF is a little bit different. It's 450 kilohertz. Okay, so before we get into the radio itself, let's look at a little Crosley history. And the Crosley Radio Corporation, it was founded in 1921 by a guy named Powell Crosley Jr. from Cincinnati, of course, and he started selling these little crystal receivers for about $7, and they were called Harco crystal sets. And if you'll remember, 1921 is where everybody started listening to radio broadcast on crystal sets, and then the next few years is that the technology has just started exploding in different technology, and they were just almost outdated. It's almost like computers were a few years ago. They're almost outdated by the time they come out. So anyway, Mr. Crosley, it was 1923, he bought another radio company in Cincinnati, and it was called Precision Equipment Company. And that was founded about like 1919, and they were selling regenerative receivers under the Ace brand. Now I have no idea whether that has anything to do with the hardware, but it was under the Ace brand. And so he integrated the companies in 1924, and he wanted the regen patents, I think is what he was mainly going after. So he renamed it the Crosley Radio Corporation in 1924, and he bought 2 more companies, and he bought the DeForest Radio Corporation Limited in Canada, and the MRAD in 1925. And in that MRAD deal, he got the Nutridyne license, which was more advanced. Now, you may remember Lee C. DeForest. He was one that came up with the triode tube, and so anyway, the Nutridyne was a lot more advanced than just the regenerative. So he was trying to better himself, I think. Then later on, he got into the DeForest Radio Company, the New Jersey. The New Jersey DeForest Company was different from the Canadian, and they were getting into some financial problems. Now, it looked like they were going to buy out, but he didn't. But he got associated in order to gain the patent pool. He was a businessman, apparently, and trying to get some business, getting these patents so where he could do more and better radios with the super heterodynes and what have you. Then his radio, the company got bought out in, I believe it was 1945, by Avco Aviation Corporation, and they continued to make the Crosley radios up until 1956, where it went out of business. So let's oh, and another interesting thing, Mr. Crosley, he owned WLW, which in 1935 to 39 was the most powerful radio station around. Now, I think it's 500,000 watts at the time, and it could be heard just about everywhere. And so what's interesting, I'll show a close-up, but right here you will see it's the only radio station listed is WLW right there. It's very small print, but there it is. Now the other variant is it's got two bars on it, and it's very similar, but it has a gold backdrop on the dial, whereas this one has a black. So let's get into this and see what we can get into. Got the knobs off. There's two different sizes. I'll have to come up with these. I'll have to check the photographs and see if I need the small one or the large one. So I'll have to look and see. But they're kind of like a snowflake. I don't know if you can see those or not. We'll put these up. Let's see. As you can see, the top is cracked. I don't know if this is a seam in the veneer or if it's a crack. I don't know if you can see that or not. On this side, that's obviously a crack, and that goes clear down into the wood. We'll have to try to address that. That's probably just veneer. And then the bottom itself is cracked. I've seen this happen before. So let's see if we can. These screws have been removed at one time. I didn't do it, so that's, you know, when you buy these things on auction, it kind of doesn't worry me, but you wonder if somebody has opened it up, found a major problem they didn't want to address, and then just put it up for auction. So we'll see how that all works out. I will let's see, I've got a baglet somewhere, and we'll put these screws, and I'll go ahead and put the knobs in it too, and then I'll put them all in a big coffee can, and so I can lose the coffee can. So let's see, you're seeing this first time. I know I alluded to it a little bit earlier, I think. But this particular radio has a has some weird capacitors, and I'm not even sure this is the original. I've seen pictures of them, and they appear to be a little bit bigger. And there is look like some witness marks that this may not be the original capacitors. You can see these wires coming out. So I've seen other radios that had capacitors that got 2 leads with a common, 3 leads, 4 leads, what have you. These are not necessarily electrolytics, but the can itself was the common, and it goes to various parts of the circuit. So let's see what we can do. Transformer, well, good thing the speaker comes out at the same time. They did a good job inside, painted the whole thing. Nice little spider. And let's see, the escutcheon is put in with screws, one missing there, but I think I can come up with a screws for that. I had to do that for the 1931 RCA Superette R7. I believe I had to come up with those screws, so it's not a big deal. Alright, now the moment of truth. What does this look like? Okay, well, not sure if this is original. I believe these are the capacitors I was talking about. They've got different colors, and they go to various parts of and the can itself is the common. Whoa, 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 stop the presses, stop the train, throw out the anchor. Man, before I get too far into this, I want to make a correction. This is not where the capacitors, those multi-lead capacitors are. Actually, that's one of them there, and that band on there is what makes is the common for the 2 capacitors. There's another one there, and there's another one that somebody's lifted here for whatever reason. I don't know, but that's one of the problems you get into when you're shooting video as you're exploring for the first time. You make wrong assumptions, and you know what assumptions are. But thought I'd correct that. See, I went into this thinking multi-terminal capacitors, and the first thing came to my mind were cans, and so that's the reason I jumped to that conclusion. But I thought I'd correct that before we got too far into this. So these cans must be the electrolytics. I believe this one has been redone. Let's see if I can zoom just a little bit. That's about it there. Let's see if we can. Oh, okay. I don't know if you can see this or not. This is very similar to the drive of the it's a little compression wheel on the dial itself that turns the whole kit and caboodle there. So let's see if I can get a close-up of this. But right here, as you can see, I believe is that modification for the 42 tube. They put a 450 ohm resistor, and let's see what size capacitor, 25 microfarad. to make that 42 tube work. Somebody's put a new cord, massive amount. Mama wanted that to go all the way across the room, so they put a good cord, but of course they taped it. You can see the speaker repair. This looks like, I don't know what that kind of looks like a staple's been through this right here, but this is basically just cloth tape, like you would make a band-aid out of, or a bandage out of. Speaker is pretty much in good shape except for that. I don't know if it's a rip. I can see behind here there's a rip behind here. I don't know if we want to try to repair that, pull that off. I'm afraid if we pull that off it may lift it off. We'll see how it sounds and go from there. This is the 42 tube here. Let's see, yeah, there's the 42. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's had that modification. This has a 6B5 socket. This one here is the 76 tube, and of course this is the 80. Feels like the socket is a little bit got this feels, let's see if I can get that off now. These have a tendency sometimes to be loose, and if you can twist and pull, and especially if it's kind of, that was a little bit loose there, so we might have to glue that one. Alright, let's see if we can get these out. These should be the 6D. These should come right off, and then we'll get the base and pull it. And that's a 6D6, made in USA. I like that. We'll run and test those after a while. Let's pull that up, get that off. Sorry if my hands are in the way, but and this one should be the same. Sometimes it's hard to get a hold of these things, and you don't want to pull the glass, and you can't get under them to pry them. Now I have taken and sprayed the bottom of them and pushed through the hole to get these out if they're really stuck. But it's coming out, and this should be another 6D6. Well, it should be. I believe that's what it says right there. And this is just a little bit loose, so we'll have to put a little glue on that, some glass glue on that. Alright, let me clean some of this up and check these tubes, and we'll see what we've got. I'm gonna do some testing. One of the things that I look for, and how much money are we going to put into this? At this point I really don't know, but is it worth fixing? Is it not? That's always something I guess people wonder. So let's think about the important things. This transformer, this power transformer, if it's bad, you're going to spend around $100 with new ones, or you're going to have to find a used one. So that's always a concern. The other, and these are all my opinions, is the speaker. coil, which makes the magnet for the speaker. It runs a DC current through there, makes a magnet, makes the magnet for the speaker, and it also is a filter choke for the power supply. It's a double duty. So if this is open, then you don't have a speaker that works, and you lose some of your filtering, so you have to replace this. Now, if you were Don from Restore Old Radios, you could rewind this. I've yet to rewind one of these, and if Don lived closer to me, he would run me off because I'd be over there bugging him, teaching me how to do that. I promise. He does a real good job. So we'll test that. The output transformer on the speaker, those are replaceable, and you can get them 15, 16, 20 bucks. So that's not a showstopper. But these two are. I mean, you can replace it, you can fix them, you can rewind them, but how much effort do you want to put in there? So we're gonna do some testing on it, and we're gonna see. And I've showed you this technique before, how to test this stuff from the top of the chassis in a lot of cases. Okay, we can test this transformer from the top of the chassis. I've showed you in videos in the past. Of course, this is the primary. We can test it through the power cord as long as this switch is operational and that it's not dirty and it's got a good connection. The high voltage windings here, we can test it through the 80 tube. If you see, I go through and I label the pin numbers so that when I'm troubleshooting on the bottom, I can tell which pin that I'm on. But if you look on the plates of the rectifier tube, each winding of the high voltage goes to each one of those plates, and it's center tapped here to ground. So I'll get more into the readings of that shortly. This is the filament transformer winding for the rectifier tube itself, and this one up here is the filament windings for the other tubes up in the on the rest of the radio set. This one will be a 5-volt winding, this will be a 6.3, and this is the high voltage ones. Now, you're asking, what are the resistance? Well, some of the schematics show the resistance reading, okay? This one does not. So how do I know it's good? Well, you can pretty much tell if they're shorted to ground or open. There'll be an infinity or a real high reading. And these are rough numbers. They're not hard and fast, but typically the primary windings, 15 to 20 ohms or so. Somewhere in that ballpark, okay? Your high voltage windings of the typical set across the whole windings, 700 to 800. Rough ballpark, okay? And of course, center tap will be about half that, 350-ish. Okay? Now, when you get into your 5 and your 6.3 windings, you're looking at less than 1 ohm, 0.5, 0.7. And that can vary. But that will tell us. Now, I caution you here, your light bulb is across this. So, if you've got things in parallel, it'll drop the resistance. So we want to take that bulb out when we do our test on that. I hope that kind of explains where we're going with this. Well, let's rearrange the camera and test this stuff from the top. Wow, I must really be long-winded. This video's gone way too long. So we're going to pick up in part 2 with the rest of it. So from Larry, from the hills of Tennessee, thanks for watching.